Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're zeroing in on one of the most perplexing, heavily investigated, and yet totally unsolved mysteries of the entire 20th century. We are heading back to November 22, 1963, in Dallas, Texas. Now, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy is arguably the most documented tragedy in modern history, right? I mean, it was captured from multiple angles by dozens of amateur photographers and filmmakers all over Dealey Plaza. But right in the middle of all those frames, literally hiding in plain sight, is a complete enigma. So today, we're going to lay out the facts, track the photographic evidence, and explore some of the wild claims surrounding the unidentified witness known only as the Babushka Lady.
To truly understand why historians and researchers are just so obsessed with this woman, you have to realize what a massive visual anomaly she is. Just picture the scene for a second. The fatal shots ring out, and absolute sheer panic ensues. People are ducking for cover, they're dropping to the floor, they're running for their lives in total terror. But right there, standing incredibly close to the presidential motorcade, is this one single figure who does exactly none of those things. She is completely unfazed. While absolute chaos unfolds all around her, she just stands there, appearing to calmly record the whole thing. It really begs the question, who could possibly be that calm in the middle of a presidential assassination?
Okay, let's dive right into this. This witness stands perfectly still with her camera raised right up to her face. She's got this wide, really poised stance, and she seems to be just smoothly tracking the presidential limousine. And here's the thing. She was incredibly close to the street. That means whatever she was capturing would arguably be the most direct, continuous, close-up footage of the assassination in existence. It's a really unsettling contrast, you know? This rock-solid calm set against a backdrop of absolute horror. For decades, investigators have desperately searched for her and that crucial film she must have captured. But, spoiler alert, to this day, neither has been conclusively identified.
Section 1. Tracking the photographic evidence.
So let's literally zoom in on the hard evidence we actually have on record. How do we know for sure she was there, and what exactly are we looking for? Well, the Babushka Lady is actually a confirmed presence in at least 4 distinct pieces of amateur historical footage. In the incredibly famous Zapruder film, you can spot her right at the .37 mark, offering a frontal view, though frustratingly, her face is totally obscured by the camera she's holding. Then in Marie Muchmore's film at .41, we see her standing with that unusually wide stance right behind a man named Charles Brem and his 5-year-old son. She pops up again in the Orville Nix film, standing on the grass between Elm and Main Streets, and finally in Mark Bell's film at .47, standing across from the grassy knoll with her back to the camera. Across all these films, we see a woman, probably in her late 30s or 40s, wearing sunglasses, a long tan-colored overcoat, and that very distinctive headscarf.
And this brilliantly illustrates her physical movements across Dealey Plaza, giving us a pretty chilling timeline. At 12:20 p.m., before the motorcade even arrives, she's hanging out near the Dallas County building. By the time the shots are actually fired at 12:30 p.m., she has crossed the street and is standing on the grass, right in the thick of the action. But notice what happens next. Instead of fleeing in a panic like everyone else, at 12:32 p.m. she casually crosses Elm Street, walking toward the crowd near the grassy knoll. And finally, around 12:35 p.m., the very last images capture her walking east on Elm Street. And then, poof, she just slips away, she vanishes entirely from the historical record.
Section 2. The Beverly Oliver Confession.
So for years, the United States House Select Committee on Assassinations had absolutely zero leads. No verified witness knew who she was, and the footage never surfaced. But then, in 1970, out of nowhere at a church meeting in Joshua, Texas, a former burlesque club singer named Beverly Oliver steps up to conspiracy researcher Gary Shaw with a massive claim. She says, "I am the mystery woman." She claimed she filmed the whole thing from just 20 to 30 feet away, and that she handed her undeveloped film over to 2 men who identified themselves as FBI agents. And shocker, she said the film was taken for investigation and never returned. But her story didn't actually stop there. She also alleged that she personally knew Jack Ruby, the guy who shot Lee Harvey Oswald, and claimed Ruby had actually introduced her to Oswald, explicitly describing him as a member of the CIA. But let's pause for a second and compare Oliver's profile to the visual evidence. Consider the moniker itself, Babushka. It's a Russian word that literally translates to grandmother or an elderly woman, and it's also the name for that traditional headscarf tied under the chin. The deep irony here is that Beverly Oliver was a slender 17-year-old dancer at the time of the assassination. I mean, that heavily clashes with the visual evidence from the actual footage, which clearly shows a much older, wider-set woman in a mature, tan trench coat.
Section 3. Debunking the claim. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how historians actually dismantle claims like this. They rely on cold, hard historical reality. When researchers asked Oliver about her specific equipment, she very confidently stated that she captured the footage using a Yashica Super 8 movie camera. Well, there's just one massive problem with that detail. The Yashica Super 8 literally did not exist in 1963.
1969. That specific model of camera wasn't actually released to the general public until 6 full years after the assassination. When confronted with this time-traveling camera impossibility, Oliver tried to backtrack, claiming she had somehow been given an early, unreleased prototype before it hit the market. But, as you can probably guess, historians simply didn't buy it. These glaring factual inconsistencies completely debunked her story in the eyes of serious researchers.
Section 4. An enduring historical enigma.
So, with Beverly Oliver's confession totally dismantled, we are right back to square one. But, nature abhors a vacuum. And in the world of the JFK assassination, a total lack of verified facts just leaves the door wide open for some incredibly wild theories to take root. Impartially speaking, these are the four most prominent theories out there. Was she a covert Russian spy gathering intelligence? Was she maybe an assassin holding a disguised camera gun, perhaps an undercover Secret Service agent? Or, and this one actually stems directly from that unusually wide physical stance we saw in the Muchmore film, was it actually a man in drag holding binoculars instead of a camera? Honestly, that last one would perfectly explain why no film was ever found. Plus, get this, meteorological records show that the morning rain in Dallas had totally stopped by 10 a.m. By the time of the shooting at 12:30, there was no active rain whatsoever, meaning her headscarf wasn't exactly practical weather protection. It just adds a whole other layer of suspicion to the entire outfit.
So what does this all mean? Well, it brings us to our final lingering thought. This explainer really shows us that even when you are surrounded by literally hundreds of witnesses and dozens of cameras, the absolute truth can still manage to slip right through our fingers. If she was holding a camera, she was holding what would be the single most important piece of historical footage of the 20th century. What secrets did her film hold? And how does a key witness standing literally feet away from a presidential assassination simply turn around, walk down Elm Street, and completely vanish forever? It's a pretty compelling reminder that the history we think we have all figured out is still full of ghosts. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I hope it leaves you questioning what other incredible details might be hiding just outside the frame.